Good morning and welcome to Dorset Council's virtual licensing hearing. My name is Councillor Emma Parker and I am Chairman of Dorset Council's Licensing Committee. If I could get my two fellow councillors to introduce themselves, please.
Okay, shall I go first? I'm Mike Dyer. My ward is Westmoors and Three-Legged Cross, which is to the east of the county.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer.
I'm Councillor David Morgan and my ward is Wimborne, which again is to the east of the county.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Can we have an election of chair for this hearing this morning, please?
Mike Dyer again. May I propose you, Emma Parker, as chair?
And David Morgan will second.
Thank you, councillors. Before I go on to the agenda items, I just want to run through a few housekeeping rules for this meeting. It is a public meeting and it will be streamed live on YouTube. We do have a chat bar. That chat bar is there just for anybody that's got any technical issues. It is not there to make comments on the meeting and it is not monitored by us as councillors, but it will be monitored by our Democratic Service Officer that is taking this meeting today. Only speak when you've been invited to by the chair, and when you are invited to speak, if you could please turn your microphones on and your cameras on, and if you haven't been introduced already, if you could please introduce yourself before speaking. There is a raise your hand function which can be used, but just to say that everybody that has made a notification to speak will get their right to speak in this meeting today. Please keep background noise to a minimum. And please, if you can turn off any alerts that you may have on your computer or your mobile phone. And please, if you can, when you're not obviously not being, when you're not talking, if you can keep your microphones muted as well, just to keep obviously the background noise to a minimum. Okay, thank you. I will now do some introductions. Obviously, we've introduced ourselves as councillors, so I would now like the council officers to introduce themselves, and I'll start with the committee clerk.
Hello, good morning. I'm George Dare and I'm clerking the meeting this morning.
Thank you, George. And I will now ask for our legal representative.
Good morning. My name's Lara Altry and I'm a solicitor with Dorset Council.
Thank you. And now I will ask the report author, and that's our licensing team leader.
Hello, it's Aileen Powell, as you say, licensing team leader.
Thank you, Aileen. I will now ask all parties and their representatives in attendance to introduce themselves, and I will start with the applicant. Jamie, I think you might be muted because I can't hear you. No, you're mute. Try again. Is it just me or can anybody else hear Jamie?
I can't hear him.
No.
I hear him either.
He is unmuted, but
Yeah, he is.
no, still not Jamie.
I'm just trying to think. Anybody that can help Jamie out as to what he could potentially.
Could possibly rejoin the meeting.
Do you want to go out of the meeting, Jamie, and come back in and see if we can see if that helps?
Is that working?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm Jamie Craig and I'm the DPS and premises license holder for the Closet Bar and the Closet.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay for me to call you Jamie?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that, Jamie. Appreciate that. Then I will ask for the representations that we have from our responsible authorities, and we do have a representation, need to put my teeth in this morning, from Environmental Health.
Hi, good morning. My name's Stephen Ireland from Senior Technical Officer from Environmental Health. And I think we've just got Jane Williams.
Jane, yeah.
Good morning. I'm sorry for my tardiness. Just done the dentist.
That's okay, Jane. Thanks for joining us. We weren't sure if you were, but obviously you are more than welcome. Thank you. We're just doing introductions at the moment, Jane, so you've not missed much.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're very welcome. And any person who has made representation has completed their notice of attendance and stated that they wish to speak, I will call you by the list that I have supplied. So I will start first with Lucy Hamilton from Weymouth Town Council.
Hi, good morning. This is Lucy Hamilton, Chair of Planning and Licensing at Weymouth Town Council.
Thank you, Lucy. And then I also have representation from Respect Weymouth.
Yes, good morning. I'm representing the residents here and yes, Respect Weymouth, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so councillors, do we have any, is there any apologies?
There are no apologies this morning.
Okay, and do either of the councillors have any declarations of interest?
None from me, Chair.
None from me.
Okay, the only thing I would like to say is that I have done a site visit of the premises, which I do on most of my applications that I sit on for licensing. I didn't enter the premises. It was just to go and have a feel for the area and the building itself. And I didn't speak to anybody whilst I was having my visit to Weymouth. Do we have any urgent business?
There are no urgent items.
Okay, thank you. And we have no exempt business.
No, Chair.
Okay, so I will now go over to our licensing team leader to outline the details of the application, including details of any withdrawn representation. Aileen.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application to vary the licence for the closet by including the footprint of what was previously the closet bar into the licensed area. Jamie Craig has run the closet since March 2015 and the closet bar since March 2017, and he is now wanting to run them as one venue with the internal link that was previously just for staff, which he's opening up for customers. It is hoped that this will reduce the impact from noise nuisance and antisocial behaviour by allowing the customers to flow freely between the venues without having to exit the premises. There are 3 representations from Environmental Health, Weymouth Town Council and Respect Weymouth, and no representations have been withdrawn. With regard to the cumulative impact area, the changes to the licence combined with the reduction of numbers of patrons that can safely be accommodated across both venues should result in no change or hopefully a slight reduction to the ASB in the area, as people who wanted to go between will now be within the premises. The police have made no representation and have not requested any additional conditions be attached to the licence. Appendix 6 contains the conditions that have been notified by the applicant that he has agreed to. This includes some of EH's representation and some from the Respect Weymouth representation. Both the EH representation and the Respect Weymouth representation show that the issues that needed to be addressed are noise nuisance from the premises, both in terms of music noise and noise of patrons in the street, and the impact that has on nearby residential properties. Noise conditions are often far from perfect, and what seems like a simple solution often is not. Previously, the licence for the closet bar had a condition attached that said that noise from the premises should be inaudible at the nearest residence. Whilst this seems in times gone by to be an obvious and simple solution, case law has determined that it is totally unenforceable. And this is due to its lack of precision and specific detail and the problems with defining inaudible when that level actually depends more on the state of the listener's ears and where they are. In preparing for this hearing, I have looked at other licences where this has been an issue, and there are a variety of approaches that can be taken. A definitive decibel level can be set to be measured at a given point. This is usually set around 15 decibels above the background level and can therefore only be done when the background levels have been determined. This gives a very simple solution and a very easily measurable one, so it's easy to enforce. Sound limiters and readings that are agreed, set or monitored by EH can also be used. These are less specific in terms of conditions and rely on a degree of initial setup and monitoring by environmental health to be effective. The third approach is to use a noise management plan. These are developed over time and can be amended. These are the hardest to enforce as the condition on the licence, as it's about their production and agreement, but they do give the most amount of flexibility to a situation that needs to be sorted going forward and may change over time. In considering which approach may be appropriate in these circumstances, I would remind all parties that if conditions do not work or are found to be inadequate, then the licence can be called in for review and the conditions tightened or amended as an alternative to prosecuting a licence holder for breach of condition. You have 2 environmental health officers here today to guide you on the most appropriate way forward with this particular premises with regard to the noise conditions. The supplementary material supplied last Thursday by Respect Weymouth contain the agreed conditions as already outlined in Appendix 6, and the 2 areas that they consider conditions are required and may not have been agreed, and those relate to a cooling down period and a no entry requirement, as well as reference to the noise conditions. On Friday, you also received further correspondence from Jamie Crage relating to the cooling down period and the no re-entry. The subcommittee will need to decide whether it is appropriate to attach a condition defining a cooling down period, which will be an inflexible solution, or to suggest those aspects in the soft closure section contained within the dispersal policy that was supplied with the application. Using the dispersal policy would give a more fluid and detailed approach to managing patrons and could be amended as required. The current dispersal policy condition could be supplemented by specifying what must be contained within it, specifying how reviews of the policy were to be treated, and whether any amendments to that policy needed to be approved by specific responsible authorities or the licensing authority. When you have heard from Mr. Crage about how he intends to run this venue and from the parties who have made representations, you will be able to decide whether something is more appropriate in a condition which becomes fixed or within a policy that can be amended and agreed between whichever responsible authorities you deem appropriate. Either way, if something is not working, I would remind you the licence can be reviewed by any party or varied by the applicant and the conditions of the licence amended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Aileen, and thank you for clarifying some of the points that I think we needed clarifying today. Thanks for that. That's been really useful. Councillors, do you have any questions for Aileen at this time?
None from me, Chair.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then I'll go.
Quite clear. Thank you, Aileen.
Thank you, yeah. Then if I can go to Jamie. Jamie, do you have any questions for Aileen?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll go to environmental health. Steve or Jane, do you have any questions for Aileen?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Lucy Hamilton from the Town Council, do you have any questions for Aileen?
No, it's been really helpful to know that there is an approach to manage noise levels. That's brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then if I can go to Respect Weymouth, do you have any questions for Aileen at this point?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then I will now ask the applicant to present their case. So if I can come on to you, Jamie.
Yeah, perfect. Apologies, I'm probably going to repeat a few things that were already mentioned by Aileen. But yeah, okay, so the Closet nightclub is applying to take over the licence footprint at the Closet Bar, formerly the Somewhere Else Bar, prior to COVID. Prior to lockdown, the Somewhere Else Bar and the Closet nightclub were 2 separate businesses. Due to the government restrictions regarding capacity due to COVID and taking into account the ongoing issues regarding noise from Somewhere Else, it was more beneficial for all to trade the Closet business in the Somewhere Else Bar space. Somewhere Else was a late night bar and club which attracted a young crowd of 18 to 21-year-olds and was open 7 nights a week and on weekends closed between 3 and 4 a.m, but was licensed till 5 a.m. The Closet is an LGBT plus bar and club, which is a much wider age demographic, which has been trading for almost 8 years. This opens 7 nights a week till 4 a.m. and also has a license till 5 a.m. The venue has no reported issues regarding noise and antisocial behaviour. The temporary change of use during last summer's restrictions was successful. There was no reported incidents of music noise or antisocial behaviour from the venue, and taking this into account and the previous issues regarding noise and antisocial behaviour in connection with the Somewhere Else Bar, we consider the best action would be to permanently close Somewhere Else Bar and utilise this space to create an extended bar space for the Closet nightclub. The now Closet Bar and Closet nightclub, although listed as different addresses, are situated next door to each other, and as shown on the plan of the application, we have transformed inside, opening up a single staff-only passage between the 2 buildings, to a double walkway to allow customers to flow between the bar and nightclub without having to leave the premises. The 2 bar spaces will be separated by heavy fireproof doors. We now propose that the new closet bar space will now be used as a bar, serving cocktails and refreshments and hosting entertainment, such as quizzes and drag queen based events in the afternoons and early evenings, along with music at more venue suitable volume. This is a complete change to what was formerly offered, a different genre, and just like the Closet nightclub will attract a much better age demographic. The Closet nightclub will continue to provide a diverse range of entertainment and DJs. Another reason for the change is that we will be able to operate as one business. This will give us the opportunity to manage crowds outside and manage the activity outside much more significantly by reducing the access and exit points. Previously, both businesses have their own entrance points, and the former Summer Else bar had issues regarding noise escaping the bar and when customers entered and exited. This was addressed by layout changes. However, this entrance now will only be used during the daytime trading, and we propose that after the hours of 1100 hours, all entrance exits of the bars will be from the Closet nightclub, reducing queue points and break points of people in the street, and will make managing crowds in the area much more manageable. Due to works previously mentioned to eliminate noise escaping and the new layout changes, the overall capacity has been reduced by 150 people, making the overall capacity now 300 instead of the previous 450. We will continue to use SIA door staff as highlighted in the application, and all staff will be trained in the dispersal policy that is also attached to the application. I would like to highlight the main reason for the application is that we've considered the ongoing concerns from residents and taken into account the advice from the authorities. I would like to improve and resolve the issues raised. I believe that making the changes listed in the application will reduce crowds, noise and antisocial behaviour considerably. Thank you. I'm sorry that was a bit jumbled, but yeah, that's all.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you for that. That's been really useful. Councillors, do you have any questions for Jamie?
None from me at this point, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Morgan? Councillor Morgan, you're muted.
Yeah.
And now you're not.
No, I'm not muted now. No, most people would wish I was muted.
Do you have any
do I gather
Jamie?
then? Do I gather then from what Mr. Craig was saying that the idea of joining the 2 parts of the building together and just having the one entrance, that would be a lot easier to control crowds? Sorry, Madam Chairman, I keep getting things from the People and Health Overview right to speak. I don't know why.
You can mute that off. Jamie, did you want to answer that question for Councillor Morgan?
Yes, so usually we would have 2 separate businesses. There'd be 2 entrances, there'd be 2 queue points, and there'd be 2 sort of areas for smoke breaks. By doing these changes, we would only sort of have one area, which will obviously be much more managed and would be smaller in size.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. I just have a question. Obviously, it's around. Obviously, Aileen's clarified the times that you've been the license holder for both premises, because that's one of the concerns I had, is obviously that the bar has had some complaints in the past, and I assume that obviously with you saying about the door staff that you are going to employ, that you would be mindful that the door staff that you employ are, sort of fully up to speed, but not just the dispersal policy, but sort of safeguarding around patrons that you've got leaving your premises. You're able just to clarify that, Jamie?
Yeah, sorry, I missed the question. I was listening to what you're saying, but I didn't quite know what you're just need really some clarification. Like I said, the bars sort of had complaints in the past. I just want to sort of really find out what you're going to do to
you know, try and contain that a bit more, and obviously just around, you know, door staff, like I said, not just being fully appreciative of the dispersal policy, but obviously sort of like safeguarding the patrons that are leaving the premises and so forth.
Yeah, okay. So obviously, yeah, we'll continue to use the SIA door staff. The music noise from the bar side, obviously that was previously sort of nightclub environment. Now moving forward, it will only be a bar environment, so the music will be of a less level. We're also going to have sort of busy times a road marshal to work alongside the SIAs. So their role will basically to be sort of keep people you know, in our area and refer them to sort of, you know, directions of taxi ranks for people trying to go home and those sort of things.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't have any further questions for Jamie at the moment. Aileen, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I will now go on to the responsible parties. So that will be Environmental Health for Steve Ireland and Jane Williams. Do you have any questions for Craig at this time?
No, thank you.
No, not at this time, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I will now go to Lucy from Weymouth Town Council. Lucy, do you have any questions for Craig?
Thank you, Chair. Craig, sorry, Jamie, do you can you just repeat about the capacity then? Is this across the two venues or in the original closet venue?
Yeah, so the overall capacity now would be 300. Previously, there would have been 250 in the bar space and then 200 in the nightclub space. So combined, that would have been sort of 450 people separately across those two businesses. Now, overall, due to all the changes, the maximum capacity for the one venue as a whole would now be 300.
Thank you, Chair. If I could also ask about, Jamie, your preferred approach to noise management, please.
In regards to the music as the condition, is that?
Yes, as regards to the music and in terms of patrons leaving the venues.
Yeah, well, I was happy to work along with Environmental Health to come to the best conclusion with that one. I believe personally working on a decibel level for the surrounding areas and sort of monitoring that with myself and the team.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't have any more questions.
No. Okay. Okay, thank you. And I'll now go to Respect Weymouth. Do you have any questions for Craig at this time?
Sorry, yes, I'd just like to make a point and then ask a very short question. Jamie did state that there has been no complaints regarding the closet outside and from noise inside. From a resident's perspective, and if you look at the ground truth in the representation, there has been quite considerable complaints from residents about noise from outside the closet. But Jamie is correct that there has been very few issues raised about noise inside. Can I just ask Jamie, I think he did verify it actually, that Somewhere Else has been operating as a nightclub before?
Craig, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, also my name is Jamie.
Or Jamie. Yeah, sorry. Do you know, Jamie, I apologise profusely. The only reason I said that is because I've just read your surname on the screen, so I apologise for that.
No problem. Sorry, Nigel. Yeah, did you say you want me to confirm that Somewhere Else had been trading as a nightclub?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm for the hearing that Somewhere Else has been operating as a nightclub prior to this variation.
Yes. Well, a sort of nightclub environment, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions from Respect Weymouth for Jamie?
No, not at this moment, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I will now ask any responsible bodies that wish to speak, and I know that we have environmental health here, so I don't know whether it's going to be Steve or Jane. Which one of you are going to take the lead on this?
Hi. Would it be possible for us to do it in two parts? Is that okay with?
Yeah.
Perhaps I could speak first, and then Jane add anything. I've been dealing with this case and others in the area, to be fair, for about 2 years now. Jane's only come into it in the last few months, so but Jane's got very extensive knowledge on noise from licensed premises, which I really do welcome at this stage. Initially, we put some recommendations in regarding this application. However, we met with Jamie very briefly on the 26th of April. That, although it was short, it was a very fruitful exercise, to be fair, especially for Jane, because she'd not visited the premises, so that helped. It also helped with myself because I wasn't familiar with the breakthrough between both the premises, so that helped to put a little bit more flesh on the bones for myself. We discussed the situation that Jamie wanted to put into place. He's put several measures in place to reduce the noise, which we welcomed. However, there's still a glazed area which was formerly somewhere else, which probably needs to be attended to. Some of that has been addressed, some of it hasn't. We welcome the exit and egress from just to be put into place in the closet as opposed to formerly somewhere else. That certainly helps. During the day, we haven't got a massive problem with that for what Jamie wants to put into place. So initially, we asked for. I'm just trying to get my notes now. So we asked for a robust enforceable noise condition relating to the nearest noise sensitive premises. If our concerns were that the closet nightclub didn't have a noise condition whereas somewhere else did. So for this to be totally taken out, we had concerns. Okay, so I mean we were led to believe that the original one was unenforceable. However, it was in place at that time. So just for one to be totally removed, we were uneasy with that. So we asked for a robust noise condition to be put in place. We also asked for a noise consultant's report. However, following speaking to Jamie, we're prepared to suspend this for a period of up to 12 months while ongoing noise monitoring, etc., takes place on that. We still feel that the last hour of the cooling down period should be implemented in this license. This helps. I think Jane will back me up on this, that from previous licensed applications, this helps just reduce the mood and just quiet things down a little bit for the as opposed to ramping it up for the last hour. To be fair, so yeah, if I could ask Jane to come in with the points that she raised, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just really wanted to confirm that when we went and visited, I was quite pleased with the amount of insulation and consideration that Jamie had put into the conversion of the somewhere else part of his business. It's actually seeing a reduction of about 75% of the single glazed panes that you can view from the outside, which leaves a, for want of a better description, a bar of light across and into the bar, which means it has natural lighting, not just solid no lighting and working from mechanical. So in that respect, it's going to contain any amplified music that is in that area quite well. There is still going to be some breakout that is recognised, and that was a conversation we had with Jamie on site as to what options he could use for the future, bearing in mind that we haven't tried how it's currently being put together. We don't know how for the future how contained that sound is going to be, but I was quite impressed. Certainly his arrangement of egress and ingress of clients, etc., to the bar has been thought of carefully, and also obviously he will have SIAs to see those going in and out as well. I don't think I've got very much more to add for that, unless people have got specific questions.
Thank you for that, Environmental Health. I appreciate those comments. Councillors, do you have any questions for Eva, Environmental Health Officer?
I don't think I have.
Councillor Morgan, you're muted.
No, I think both Steve and Jane have made it quite clear their concerns and what can be done if needed to monitor them. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. Steve, you mentioned about the noise consultation report.
Yeah.
I'm just mindful that I think 12 months is quite a long time to have it suspended for. I mean, would that be something reasonable to come up with for a noise management plan, or would you expect it to be able to be done in sort of like a reasonable time?
We thought, well, bearing in mind, Chair, that nightclubs won't be opening until the 21st of June.
Yeah.
That cuts time down a lot. I understand some noise monitoring with Weymouth Respect has been going on. That we welcome that as well over the last few weeks. However, obviously it's different, you know, when there's no patrons in the premises as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, to coin a phrase, I think for a while we're going to have to suck it and see.
Okay.
And see how things go. We're more than prepared to work with Jamie on this, and with Weymouth Respect. So I think basically ongoing monitoring, you know, is going to have to be in place for quite some time. 12 months is a long time. I do agree. However, you know, we've got like the Christmas period, etc., in with that as well, which is you know, it is a slightly different time, but it is what it is. I think Jane's got something to add.
Yeah. I was going to say Jane has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we're still in early days as far as the roadmap for COVID is concerned as well. And the nightclubs and hospitality trade are one of the last to be freed. And they're probably, if we do have a return to what we've previously experienced, will probably be the first to close because of the grouping of individuals. So we were very conscious of the fact that that might actually cause a delay in being able to understand the running of the business and its possible impact on residential premises in the area.
Okay, thank you. I have, if I can just go to Aileen first, Councillor Dyer. I've got Aileen has her hand up. She wants to come in on something.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted just for clarification, really, if we are going to put conditions onto a licence, then they need to be exact, they need to be enforceable, and they need to be measurable. So if we are going to go down the road of anything that's going to take a year, or we don't know how long it's going to take, then I would recommend that it goes into a policy of some description that environmental health can then approve.
A policy as opposed to a condition, because a policy can be changeable, conditions sort of there in black and white, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just aware that there's been some suggestion that we could have something maybe on there for a year and having the noise consultant plan for a year. That is kind of straying into that very difficult territory where we're not certain with it.
A policy would be easier to manage going forward. Yeah. And would you agree on that one, Jane and Steve?
I've got no problem with either way. I assume a policy is something that's agreed by Jeremy as well going forward, and all the parties of concern. But it needs to be managed by environmental health in the long run. We need to be the ones that make the decision, please.
Aileen, did you want to come back on that?
No, thank you, Chair. I don't think Jane and I disagree on this at all.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Dyer, did you have a question?
It wasn't a question, it's just an observation, really. I thought one of the positives of the year period was that it takes into account holiday times and seasonality in general, so I was comfortable with that.
Okay, that's fine. Councillors, do you have any further questions for environmental health?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. I will go to Aileen. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll now go to my list. I'll go to Craig. Craig, sorry, I apologise. Jamie, do you have any questions for environmental health at this time?
No, I don't. I'd just like to say, I'm happy to work and with them to find the best solution for everyone, really.
That's great. Thanks, Jamie. And I will now go to our responsible. I know I've done our responsible authorities. I will now go to any persons that made or any representation. So if I can go to Lucy. Lucy, do you have any questions for environmental health?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think this is very reassuring. I just want to make it plain to anyone that's not familiar with this particular corner of Weymouth that the neighbouring properties are very different in nature. So the Closet Club is downstairs, as I recall, underground, and the bar next door, the proposed Closet Bar, is mostly, as has been said, big glass windows. So I just want, I've got two questions really. Is really what are those special measures? Could you just clarify the special measures for the area with the glass windows? And then secondly, the question is about noise monitoring. Is environmental health able to be part of that exercise to give some subjective observation, some reassurance to residents and the business owner alike? Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that. Basically, environmental health would be involved with all parties regarding acceptable levels. I can't remember the first part of the question. Sorry, what was the first part of the question?
I believe the first part of the question that Lucy wanted to answer was the I think she had concerns around the area, the main glass window area.
When we visited on the 26th, Jane and I, some of the glassed area had been insulated, which was welcomed, and some of it hadn't. As we understand, the main complaints with the noise have been the noise bursts, and that was from which was from the before the lobby area was created, but bass noise as well. And that bass noise, we're led to believe, is now going to be contained in the closet itself. However, we have slight concerns that could return in the closet bar as well. So that's where the ongoing working with Jamie over the next 12 months will come into place. To be fair, like I said, it's not the finished article as yet. As Jane mentioned, a lot of changes and improvements have taken place, definitely. And it's quite right to say that, well, certainly in my 8 years, I've not known of any complaints from live music from the closet, but we have from somewhere else. So we're just going to have to take it and see how these changes that are being put in place, see what the effect is. But we're quite prepared to work with people regarding noise monitoring. We can even do our own side by side. It's as simple as that. I don't know if Jane's got anything to add to that.
No, I don't think I haven't really got anything to add. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Lucy, do you have any further questions?
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I will go to see Jamie has his hand up. Jamie, do you have a question for environmental health?
No, I didn't have a question as such. I just wanted to say to sort of Lucy that we have got other options available for the additional soundproofing to the remaining windows. We were looking into sort of a temporary structure to sort of put in place in the evening when the sort of music became louder than the daytime music. But obviously we were going to review that when things sort of open back up, really, and if that would be required.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll now go to Respect Weymouth. Do you have any questions for environmental health?
Yes, please, if I may.
Yep.
If I could just say that we Respect Weymouth does definitely support the need for robust conditions. We also support the need for a policy position to have these conditions or the limits placed in, because I think, as the responsible authorities have said, that this would be easier to manage, and there would be the potential for the applicant and Respect Weymouth and environmental health to work together on that. So we would welcome that approach. We do have severe, very, very severe reservations about providing an initial condition that is set against background limits. And there are a number of reasons for this, but specifically at this point in time, for example, during statutory nuisance recording for the complaints made against somewhere else when it was that, the outside levels at 3 in the morning were extremely quiet, and Stephen was quite surprised at how quiet they were, sort of mid 30 decibels, which is very quiet. At the moment, the background levels, because of the COVID restrictions being lifted, I would say we are in extraordinary circumstances here, and every night where there are significant events going on, or especially around the harbour, it does feel like New Year's Eve. And we did some measurements this weekend around the same times as those used for environmental health, and the measurements for background noise were well over 65 decibels. So this makes the background noise five times louder, in simple terms, than what has normally been the case here. And any condition that is defined against a background noise at these times is going to be grossly grossly unfair to the residents, and it's going to mean that acceptable levels that have been defined by the World Health Organization and DEFRA for specific sector nuisance research will be exceeded by a considerable margin. The question I have is, Respect Weymouth has produced some conditions with Poppleston Allen. Those conditions are based on well-established research from the World Health Organization and the DEFRA. They take into account background noise, and they meet the requirements of the Court of Appeal. And the limits are, as we perceive them, are very fair. They're actually not inaudible, they are above inaudible and at just acceptable limits as defined by DEFRA and the World Health Organization. So the question is, given that we are willing to move forward with a flexible approach and that the targets that could be put in place would be grossly unfair if they were established against background levels, particularly at this point in time, could we use the limits that have been proposed through Poppleston Allen and their own noise consultant as a starting point to move forward with the applicant and with environmental health? We're not set in stone with them. We have said all along that we'd be willing to look at them. They need to be tested practically, and they need to be fair for the applicant and the residents. And we remain extremely concerned that limits against background levels won't achieve this.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm much more familiar with the report from Poppleston Allen, is it, than Jane. I've looked through them a couple of times. I don't think they are unreasonable. To be fair, I agree, and I think we all agree that, especially with licensed premises opening recently on the 17th, was it, of May, there's been a lot of outside noise, people outside, and I get all that, and I don't think the situation at the moment, I agree with Nigel, I don't think it is the norm, even for Weymouth. I don't think it is the norm, certainly for April time, to be fair. So yeah, basically regarding noise limits, I totally agree that you know, we need to, it's something we need to work to before we totally agree anything. But to answer your question, Nigel, I don't think they're unreasonable, the noise limits that you suggested.
Thank you, Steve. Respect Weymouth, do you have any further questions for environmental health?
No, thank you. I'd just like to say that's very constructive, and I think we would welcome a move to go forward on that basis if we used the conditions that we've got as a starting point.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any further questions for environmental health? No? Okay, thank you. I will now move on to anybody that's made a representation and has indicated their wish to speak, and I will go by the list that I've got. So I will start with Lucy Hamilton from the Town Council. Lucy, is there anything that you would like to add? I will ask everybody if they have any questions for you.
Thank you. I just want to firstly say that sending apologies from Councillor John Orrell. He's the district councillor. He's unable to attend this morning because of other commitments. As you know from the agenda papers, this item was discussed on the 13th of April. At that time, we had a representation from concerned residents, and in summary, the concerns again, they're captured in your agenda, were about, firstly, the how right it was just to have what the two premises joined together. It wasn't clear from the information in front of us how the operating schedule would work. And then we also had concerns about noise. Today we've been discussing noise within the premises. We did have concerns about noise and antisocial behaviour, including noise, litter, urination in the street. Now, those aren't necessarily just customers at the closet business, but we do need to work with partners to find a way to manage those. So we do, as a council, we support the business, we support a licensee, but we want to see the impact on residents locally managed effectively. So our concern is that the applicant must demonstrate how this variation of the licence will not impact on the cumulative impact area. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I appreciate that. Councillors, do you have any questions for Lucy from the Town Council? I'll take that as a no. Councillor Dar, you are muted, but I got your head shake, that's fine. Councillor Morgan.
No, I don't think so. I think if Lucy is acceptable of what has been suggested, that
Okay.
Should be okay.
Thank you. If I can go, Aileen, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jamie, do you have any questions?
No, I don't know.
Thank you. And then I will go to Respect Weymouth. Do you have any questions for Lucy from the Town Council?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I will now move on to Respect Weymouth. Nigel, is there anything that you would like to add?
Sorry, Chair, do you mean in terms of presenting my case, or?
Yeah, I'll give you a chance to sum up at the end, but yeah, this is your chance to have your say, and then obviously, like I said, we'll do the same process, but we'll ask you questions and see if anybody's got questions for you at the end.
Okay, I have prepared something, but as always, as things have progressed already this morning,
yeah,
some of the stuff that I prepared, I have a statement which I'd like to read out, but some of it, in some respects, is actually we're moving away from. So if I could, I'll read it out, but if the committee could bear that in mind. That,
yeah, that's absolutely fine, not a problem.
Moving feast. We are supportive of the plans to vary the operating model of the closet bar and the closet, and we have worked with Jamie to try and agree terms for this. We have to say we were disappointed that the applicant chose to do this without considering the impact of losing most of the licensing conditions on the closet bar. In our view, this has left the application incomplete, and we do believe that the shortfalls, particularly around noise conditions, will lead to additional impacts for the cumulative impact area if they're not addressed. And if these can't be mitigated with conditions, as we've already discussed, we understand that the council would need to refuse this application under the council's licensing policy. Before moving on, I can already feel that there is a will to work together in a constructive way. So I can see that that's moving forward. We are aware that Annex 1 will be revised by licensing, so this has already been dealt with. So just in respect of the variation and the closet bar license, which has been run as a nightclub, at the time of the application, none of the 75 closet bar conditions from Annex 2 appear to have been risk assessed or considered for the variation. None of the closet bar public nuisance conditions were included. No attempt was made to speak to us before the application to be constructive about loss of those conditions. a little bit concerned about that. Section 9.3 of the licensing report that was read by Aileen earlier on does state that the application will reduce noise impacts and antisocial behaviour. We don't agree with this. It doesn't appear to be the case, especially given the evidence from environmental health, from past issues around statutory nuisance, from the structure of the building, from environmental health position that the building is not fit for purpose for amplified music at levels that it have been. And we also believe that antisocial behaviour and public nuisance outside, we welcome the changes by Jamie to amalgamate the exits and entrances. I think that will help. But the bottom line is, unless there are effective measures to deal with this outside, beyond words in a dispersal policy, and perhaps supported with cooling down and last entry re-entry, then these issues won't go away. They simply won't. Just remind the panel that the Closet Bar has recently been served stage 1 and 2 notices for statutory nuisance. And as Stephen and Jamie have said, the changes as a result of that have reduced noise impacts, particularly from noise bursts for the residents, but excessive bass and ongoing noise is still being beyond what the license has been granted. Can I just check that you can hear me? It does feel like my computer.
No,
you can hear.
No, we can hear you.
Sorry, you've gone frozen on my screen, and I just had dread that I was talking to myself.
No. I've been able to hear everything you've said, so I'd hope that everybody else has.
Yes.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Sorry, I'll crack on.
No worries.
I will crack on. As I said earlier, environmental health has advised us that the building is not fit for purpose as it stands, particularly at the levels of music that have been played there, and particularly the bass. We accept that not all the glazing is covered, but the reality is the glazing is a significant weak point in the perimeter of the building, and it does enable sound to escape, and particularly heavy bass, and that is a very, very serious issue for residents in terms of their ability to sleep. The applicant has advised us on soundproofing improvements, that soundproofing improvements would be made on many occasions before, but sadly they haven't materialised. I have spoke with Jamie recently about some things that we have done locally, and again he has stated that he's willing to look at temporary provisions in the area of glazing that's not covered, so that is welcome, but we would like to see some action there as part of a way forward if the glazing is not up to it, rather than what's happened before, increase the limits from the property and pass those past the increases onto residents, so they have to provide their own soundproofing, which is not fair and not reasonable, given that the enforcement of the Licensing Act requires noise to be kept to prevent public nuisance. The ground truth of residents, as in the representation, does paint a very accurate picture of what's been endured here. Jamie is right, and Stephen, I agree with Stephen. The Somewhere Else and the Closet have been completely different. They are completely different buildings. It's very clear to see that if you've been to see them, and if you live here, you can really experience much different issues from them both. Somewhere Else's majority of issues from music inside, but also noise from outside in control areas, which hasn't been managed, regardless of the intent of a dispersal policy. It's just worth adding that a number of the conditions in the dispersal policy that Jamie has proposed in this variation have been worked up with Jamie and presented, or even as ideas, from Respect Weymouth. And so we have been very involved at early stages, 12 to 18 months ago, with the dispersal policy conditions. Unfortunately, having a policy is great. Having the ability and the leadership and the management commitment to actually deal with them is considerably different. And the noise outside, whilst the policy is in place and notices are in place and words are there, the action from the outside door staff has been nowhere near effective enough to deal with the screaming, shouting, fighting in the managed areas outside the immediate access and egress of the venue. And the same goes for the closet. So both venues have significant issues from outside noise. And as residents, because of the lack of progress and action towards this, as well as the conditions that we are seeking to resolve the noise from inside constructively, as we have provisionally agreed through this hearing so far, we would also require some form of measurement of limits of noise outside, particularly in the very early hours of morning when the background noise levels from places like the harbour has disappeared. As I've said earlier, the background noise levels here in the town centre are unbelievably quiet in this area at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And just a few people outside, just 5 people, if they're not being managed, if they're not being supported by security staff, if the dispersal policy isn't being delivered on the ground, then the noise issues from outside are quite significant, and they are more than capable of waking residents up quite regularly, and they have done. And if you look at the resident survey that we completed when we first started to do this work, quite a significant number of residents are woken 3 or more times a week. And the majority of that has been with noise from inside the closet and noise from inside somewhere else and noise from outside both venues. There have been other venues around, but the majority of those have not been producing noise at that same time. So we have been able to tell the difference. It has been quite clear. So just for example, I'd just like to give the panel a feel for how it has been to live here with things as they have been. Residents have regularly been woken up at least 3 nights a week in the early hours. We have been told by licensees and this applicant that they have checked the noise outside and it's okay. So, from their perspective, it must be. It clearly hasn't been. We are regularly told by licensees and this applicant that outside noise is always down to transient crowds. Well, we have evidence if the panel wants to see it. We haven't raised it in the representation. Didn't feel it was that significant, but it's very clear when you live next to a venue at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning or a Sunday morning or a Wednesday morning when there's nothing else open in the town and there is a small group outside making considerable noise that's not being managed with SIA security staff or bar staff. It's very clear that that's not transient crowds. And again, that's the reason why we've asked for conditions to help incentivize this and motivate some form of action. And we don't want to be the noise police, if you like. We appreciate that people want to talk outside, but there is a limit, and licensees and the applicant for these venues really must be more considerate and understand that when these noise issues aren't managed, they have considerable impact on the local community. And just to reiterate, if I may, it's not all about these 2 venues, but specifically in this immediate area of these 2 venues, at least 10, maybe 11 people have moved out in the last 12 months prior to lockdown. That's been because of noise outside that's not been managed. It's been because of noise inside. A predominant issue around that has been the bass. And clearly from a resident perspective and a licensing enforcement perspective and a responsibility to licensing objectives perspective, that clearly isn't acceptable. this residential area has had people living in it of over 30 years. It's one of the most historic residential areas in the whole of Melcombe Regis. It's got some beautiful houses. It's growing in its residential population. People are wanting to move to the area. And this really is something that we want to get resolved, because what we don't want to see here is more people moving out. The last die-hard members of the community are sticking it out. They want to build a sense of community. They want to build a sense of place to build together and have a good time. They want to be constructive with the licensing, and they don't want this place to turn into another back street of Boscombe where all you can see is houses in multiple occupation, empty residents, empty holiday lets, because people just can't, they can't do it. They just simply can't do it. So where are we now? Following the application, we have discussed our concerns with the applicant, and we have agreed to a number of conditions. And I think we are in agreement with Jamie about where we have come to with that. And we presented those in item 7 of the report as a supplement to the report. I don't think there's any surprises in there for Jamie or licensing. We have also agreed some updates to the dispersal policy, also shown in that item in section 7, but we have not been able to agree, for obvious reasons and for the reasons we've talked about so far, the reinstating the existing, I hasten to add, the existing preventative noise conditions that were in place or still are in place for the closet bar. The only reason they are not enforced at the moment is because they were taken to a court of appeal, and as Aileen did mention earlier, the wording is imprecise. The conditions that we have proposed, we want to be fair, we want to be constructive, we don't want to enforce conditions with limits that are going to make it difficult for Jamie, but by the same token, we are definitely not wanting to put up with conditions that ensure or force residents to be woken up at night with limits and conditions that are over and above by some considerable margin what has been recommended by World Health Organization and the government DEFRA research for sector specific nuisance issues. So we do believe that there's a need to carry over the existing condition for the closet bar license, which we have noted in the discussions prior to this, that the Somewhere Else did operate as a club. It wasn't just a bar, it's been a club for a long time. And within that condition, within that license, there is a condition that talks about a cooling down period. So we think that's valuable, and Environmental Health also can see that that is valuable. So we would like that to be carried over. What we don't want is there is a significant fears by residents here. At least 4 premises on the seafront have closed down, and all of those were open till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Some of them later, actually. We don't want a position where if we define what if we define what the closet feels like now against the past, I don't think that's real, because the reality is there's only 1 bar left on the seafront, the Nook. It's open till 5 in the morning, I believe. So there is a whole ranch of new customers that are going to be seeking a night out in Weymouth. And Jamie's venue is a respected venue. It's great fun, it's diverse, and so why wouldn't people want to go there? The worry that we have is that with an increase of patrons moving their way towards this end of the town into this area, which has already suffered public nuisance and other issues that's quite out of control even at the moment, it's very foreseeable that if there was no cooling down period, and as Jamie's raised, that there is an overall limit of both of the whole premises now of 300. If I understand the music goes off at 4 o'clock, which is part of the regulated activity condition. What we definitely do not want in the area is 300 people, all highly spirited, intoxicated to various levels, tipping out into the street and not being able to be managed. Because the reality is that even at this stage, with 5 people in the street or 30 people in the street, the applicant has not shown or demonstrated that he can manage the noise outside, even with the dispersal policy that is being presented to this application. There is an absolute requirement for action over words here. So we want to see the cooling down period for the last hour. And also in relation to that, we don't also understand why, if you have a cooling down period in the last hour, the sole purpose of that is to stagger people coming out of a venue to prevent significant public nuisance on the local community. Why in that period, if it was an hour, would you enable new customers to come in to the venue? So if a group of 10, 20 or 5, or it doesn't matter, if other people are walking through and wanting to go into the venue, at the time when we are seeking to reduce numbers in the venue, to stagger them leaving the premises in stages, we can't see that allowing re-entry during this period makes sense. It contradicts completely the need for a cooling down time. So aligned to the need for a cooling down time is a need for last entry. So we would like to see, as part of the conditions, that, or even the policy position that we're proposing, I'd be quite happy to put it in that, so that we could work together and see how it all comes together. That there is a need for 1 hour cooling down with music volumes reduced, and in that time no re-entry at the same time. That would give some assurance to the residents, given the lack of crowd management outside to date, that there would be some action and measures that would help to reduce the impacts that are being suffered here. And I guess just reiterating where I left earlier, residents here have worked with a leading solicitor in London, Poppleston Allen. They have their own noise consultants and their engineers and their advisors within that group. The noise conditions that have been proposed by Respect Weymouth have been set at the upper levels of all the thresholds. So we haven't set it, so the nuisance threshold, for example, with research being done by DEFRA, states a cutoff where it says noise is only just acceptable. Beyond this, it's not acceptable. We have proposed a condition that is just acceptable in our limits. When you look at the limits that are proposed by the World Health Organization, there is medical evidence within that research that demonstrates that regardless of where the noise is coming from, whether it's from inside or outside an enforceable premises, if those limits go beyond a level, then people will get woken up. It's a fact. That is determined by research, by the World Health Organization, and there is very sufficient evidence in the World Health Organization to determine those limits. And also there are limits set for maximum levels as well. So the limits that we have proposed, not only do we believe that they're fair and objective, we are willing to work with the applicant and with environmental health to use them as a starting point to see how they work out for everybody concerned. so that we can reach a conclusion that is fair and objective. I reiterate that I have severe reservations about setting enforceable limits against unenforceable background noise, because if a background noise is significantly over a limit that has been that is shown to wake residents, and then you allow enforceable noise to be 15 decibels above this, it just simply doesn't make sense. As residents, we choose to live here, and we accept completely and totally that it's never going to be silent. We accept that we live in a noisy area, we're in the centre of town, it's very vibrant, and we accept that we can do nothing against noise that is unenforceable. That's the condition that we live here. What we don't accept is where a noise condition could be provided that is allowed to exceed that level and then cause significant nuisance and health impacts on residents. So we reiterate that we would like our conditions to be used as a starting point. We are flexible with them, but they're a fair and objective positions set by Poppleston Allen. They meet the requirements of the Court of Appeal. They are specific, measurable, and enforceable. So all the work has been done, and I guess that's where we're ending up.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Respect Weymouth, and thank you for your detailed report. It's been really useful. Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for Respect Weymouth?
I don't. I thought that was a very thorough, comprehensive summary. So a lot of useful information in it. I don't think I've got any questions though.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morgan? You're muted. Now you're unmuted.
No, I agree with Councillor Dyer that it was quite comprehensive, and you know, I appreciate where Nigel is, where he's coming from.
Okay,
know.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll now go to Aileen. Aileen, do you have any questions for Respect Weymouth?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will now go to our responsible authorities. Do you have any questions for Respect Weymouth?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jamie, do you have any questions for Respect Weymouth?
No, I don't.
Okay. Lucy, do you have any questions for Respect Weymouth?
No, I don't. Thank you. Very comprehensive. Thank you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Chair, can I just clarify one point?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Nigel, for his extensive report. Just to clarify for the record, notices weren't actually served. It was first and second stage noise abatement letters. They were just warning letters. The first letter is routine to say that we've received a complaint and we're investigating. The second one is that we're still receiving complaints, and monitoring will go into the second stage, including noise monitoring equipment, etc., etc. So, yeah, just to clarify that point. Okay,
thank you. Respect Weymouth.
Yeah, thank you for that, Stephen. I'd just like to apologise if I've misled the committee on that. I wasn't aware that was the case. I realised there was 2 stages, but I wasn't aware of the formal position of those. Thank you.
No worries, Nigel. It's easily done. It's not a problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I want to go now for everybody to sum their case up, but I just want to make sure that nobody has any questions for anybody. So this is for anybody that wishes to ask a question to anyone. I want to make sure that you're all happy to go into summing up, knowing that you've covered all the ground that you want to. I do have a hand up from Respect Weymouth, but I think that might have been from the response from Steve. Yes, I believe it
Sorry,
was.
that was a mistake.
No, that's absolutely fine. No worries, no worries. Okay, I will now give the opportunity for all the parties to sum up their case. And I'm going to work backwards on this one, as I always do. So I will go to the representations first. So I will start with Respect Weymouth. Is there anything else you'd like to add to sum up your case?
I think I've probably said enough, to be honest.
It's all good. Just want to make sure that you're happy that you've covered everything and that you've told us everything that you think we need to know. So you do write a very, very comprehensive report every time. So that's really, really useful. And what you've added today has been very useful as well. I
think I've said enough, Chair. I think I'm pretty happy with where we're at.
Okay, well, thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. Do appreciate your time. Okay, I will now go to Lucy. Lucy, would you like to sum up your case, or is there anything else that you'd like to add? Just want to make sure you two are happy.
In summary, we support the business. We would like to see the dispersal policy effectively managed and some kind of noise restrictions that are enforceable. That's my summary.
Thank you, Lucy, who has joined us on behalf of Weymouth Town Council. And again, Lucy, thanks for joining us this morning. Do appreciate your time. I will now go to the applicant, Jamie. Jamie, would you like to sum up?
I would just like to talk about the two businesses. Part of the dispersal policy, I'm happy to add that the Closet Bar side, the music from 2 AM would be background noise only to ease the dispersal, and that bar would be shut by 3 AM. So the people that were in there would move into the nightclub side, and then the normal dispersal of the nightclub would happen. We would obviously have the additional door staff to manage the outside area to sort of ease the dispersal on that also. I just also want to add that I'm obviously happy to work with environmental health to come up with the noise conditions that are needed for the licence. I think really that's sort of all I wanted to add, really.
Okay, thank you, Jamie, and again, thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate your time. I will now go to our licensing team leader, Aileen.
Did you want environmental health to sum up, Chair?
Oh, I didn't do that, did I? That was really rude of me. Yes, of course, environmental health. Would you like to sum up, please?
Hi. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to leave you out.
Yeah, that's fine. Jane, do you want to go first?
Jane, you're on mute.
Jane, you're on mute.
Sorry. I was going to leave Steve to it, actually.
Okay.
He was doing so well before. I didn't need to join in, really.
Thank you.
Steve, the floor's yours.
Thank you for that. Basically, from my point of view in environmental health and discussing the situation with Jane and Jamie, that there's certainly work in progress here. I think all parties will agree on that. But I would like to see some type of noise condition in place, an enforceable noise condition, not one that can't be enforced. Yeah, that's basically it from myself. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Steve, and sorry that I left you out. And now I will move on to our licensing team leader, Aileen.
Thank you, Chair. I don't actually have anything to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will now ask our legal advisor if we have covered all relevant points and they have been addressed.
Yes, Councillor Parker, I think you've covered everything.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask one last time, is everybody happy that they've had their say?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
It's Respect Weymouth, yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. Okay. In which
Sorry,
case...
I just have one point to raise. Sorry, that I forgot to mention earlier. Respect Weymouth discussed the need for a cooling down period. I want to highlight that previously on the Closet nightclub licence, I think it was around about 3 years ago, we had this condition on this licence, and we felt that when we did this, when we closed and shut the music off an hour before closing, the majority of the customers just left at the same time. So I feel that it would be, it wouldn't be as effective to do that now, because obviously people are in that nightclub environment and that's what they want to be in. So if you shut the music off, they will just all sort of leave and disperse at the same time, whereas a staggered approach is what it happens now. Usually at sort of 4 a.m. when we do close, we only have sort of 30 people left at this time.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Jamie. Appreciate that. Respect Weymouth.
Can I just come back on Jamie's point on that?
Yep.
Basically, I think from an environmental health point of view, it's not just completely shutting the music down. Okay, it's just toning it down, turning it down, just so people can perhaps chat a little bit, and just to lower the tone and calm people down. That's basically all it is. Not completely turn it off.
Okay, thank you.
Jane might have something to say on that.
Okay, yeah, I was just about to say, Jane, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I'd agree with my colleague there. It's more about tuning your hearing better as well. You may not have heard of this, but it's called temporary threshold shift. When you come out of a nightclub, even as old as I am, you get that ringing in the ears. That's what the temporary threshold shift is. And then as you go to bed and you wake up in the morning, hopefully that shift has changed and you don't hear the ringing anymore. So what your hearing is doing is basically going, I've had enough of that. It's too loud for me. I want to calm it all down. And what happens is with the alcohol and the temporary threshold shift, your voice volume increases. So when they go outside, when the patrons go outside, they've got elevated voices because they can't hear each other think, let alone hear each other's speech. So it's not just the alcohol that does that, but also a higher volume of music. So by decreasing the music towards the end of the evening, or morning, should I say, in Jamie's particular instance of his business, you're actually encouraging that hearing to recover a little bit, so that when they step outside, they are not as loud in speech, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Jane. Jamie, does that make sense? It does to me, I think.
Yeah, that does clarify some things, but I just know from previous it wasn't all that effective in the people leaving at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Respect Weymouth, if you have your hand up, is that from before? Okay.
Apologies, no. I would just like to make a point on the issues that we've just discussed, and to just reiterate that we're comparing the premises as it is now.
Yeah.
4 nightclubs have closed on the seafront. All those people are going to go somewhere. This is a great venue. They will be encouraged to go there, I expect, themselves. And the risk of not having a cooling down and a last entry is that we could end up, worst case scenario, with 300 people coming out into the street at once. It's just not acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody want to add anything else? Okay. In which case, the public part of the meeting will now conclude. The subcommittee will consider the decision in private with the Democratic Service Officer in remote attendance and the legal advisor who may be called upon to offer legal guidance. The decision of the licensing subcommittee shall be communicated to all parties and will be put on our council's website as soon as obviously we've made our decision. We do anticipate to make our decision today. And I believe Aileen will let you know once our decision has been made to all interested parties, and you will have a written decision notice sent out to you within the next 5 working days. Should any parties not be happy with the decision that the licensing subcommittee has made, then you do have your right to appeal, and your right to appeal is within 21 days of receiving your written decision, and that is via Weymouth Magistrates Court. Could I please have a vote to go into a closed session?
I propose that, Chairman.
Thank you.
Second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close this meeting, and I thank everybody for their attendance this morning. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.